Hey friends, both new and old. Welcome to my space on the interwebs. I am James Crater and I'm a Resiliency and Kinesics coach. I wanted to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for getting curious about my work and for choosing to spend a little time with me here online. I really appreciate it. My intention was to create a free resource for you to utilize however it is you choose to utilize free resources. So, if you are a movement professional looking for some inspiration, or an avid mover looking for some further explorations, or maybe you are a curious type game changer CEO just getting your feet wet and checking out this whole resiliency, body awareness stuff. Well, hopefully, the tools and resources you find here prove beneficial along your journey and get you a little curious about what else there is to this whole exercise movement stuff. My hope is to help cultivate a new understanding about and around exercise and movement. I think by now, as a community, we understand that a movement practice is a good thing, that doing exercise is beneficial. I mean, you can turn on a number of shows, listen to a number of podcasts, read a number of articles as to why you should be participating in a movement or exercise practice. The crux of it is culturally, we finitely value why we should be participating in this really beneficial, really interesting thing we call movement. Culturally, we talk about it in terms of movement and exercise helps us to lose weight, or to gain more muscle, or to fix that broken shoulder, or to get better at a competition. And I think that it's often really hard to stay engaged with and motivated by a movement practice when we don't necessarily find a generous amount of value in all of the things that culture is telling us we should be experiencing with a movement practice. There are a number of reasons why we could or should be moving outside of losing weight, gaining muscle, fixing a shoulder, and or within competition. And so that's explicitly what my work is about. And I like to think of it as an invitation. Are you ever confused by the information coming from your body? Meaning, do you ever get a sensation in your shoulder that you just can't quite interpret, and so you walk around all day saying your shoulder's nagging you? Or maybe it's your knee or your hip or your back, whatever the case may be. Or do you refer to it as your good side and your bad side because the bad side won't cooperate in the way you would prefer it to? I mean, there's a number of ways that this scenario can play out. I've been in the fitness and wellness industry for the greater portion of 15 years now, and to tell you the truth, I don't know that there has ever been a single day that I have felt I fit in, because it is questions like this that were always much more interesting than the number of topics that the fitness and wellness industry would prefer to talk about. And to me, the reason why the nagging shoulder question is so difficult for us to address within fitness, or the good side, bad side scenario, is because, quite honestly, what we're asking in that moment is, how should I be feeling? You tell me, teacher, how should I be feeling? You tell me, expert, what is this thing that I'm sensing? To me, it's as if you were going to try some food and you tasted it and you looked to someone else and said, well, what should this taste like to me? It just doesn't make sense when we take it out of context. Unfortunately, the fitness and wellness industry has never created the tools needed or the lens to look at movement that helps us as discerning participants in a movement practice, helps us to distinguish, well, what is this thing that I'm feeling? And how do I create a better relationship with my bad side or that shoulder or that foot? The platform from which I investigate and teach movement, or my method, I call physical narrative analysis. I think too often we are adopting and creating and holding on to dearly stories about ourselves, about our bodies, our movement, capabilities, inabilities, stories about us that just aren't serving us at all. Sometimes we hold on to them because an expert has informed us or a friend, or sometimes we just hold on to them because we don't have an alternative story to attach to. And when we hold on to these stories, they become narratives. They become life narratives. And those life narratives begin to govern decisions we make. And how I often see it in my studio and in my practice is people will come in and they'll say, well, I can't do that because. I can't do that because of my knee. Oh, I could never do that because of my bad side. I stopped doing fill in the blank because of my nagging back. And we hold on to those narratives and we demonize portions of our body, and we begin to disbar and disconnect from our relationship to self. And therefore, these stories just perpetuate and perpetuate and perpetuate. And what I'm hoping is that through physical narrative analysis, we can begin to analyze some of those physical narratives that we hold so deeply true in our bodies and in our lives. And as I see it, there are two main branches. We can approach this physical narrative analysis either through resiliency training and or kinesics, body language training. What is resiliency and kinesics coaching? Well, maybe we should start off with a conversation of what's resiliency? Resiliency, to me, is our endurance factor for life. Think of it in terms of a battery. Some of us are entering our days with a 100% charged battery. Some of us at 80%, 50%, less maybe. The issue is that battery charge is what allows us to be more or less successful in that day. That battery charge is what powers us through all of the things we'd like to be and get done for the day. Resiliency is the quality that allows us to be creative and intelligible, that makes us more or less task-oriented, more or less able to relax at the end of the day. It's a highly important quality that up until recently we haven't really given its due diligence. And there are a number of ways you can upgrade your resiliency. Just do a Google search. You'll see a number of different resiliency coaches. Some choose to tackle it through diet, some through meditation and or cognitive awareness exercises. And the reason why you can enter into resiliency training through a number of ways is because it is the quality that overrides how successful we are overall in life. And so because I am a movement educator, I tackle resiliency coaching through the lens of movement. And so what looks more or less like self-care, self-massage, exercise is really small mini master classes and how you can become more resilient, therefore being more successful and hopefully more happy in life. What is kinesics coaching is just a little more difficult to pinpoint, but only because it requires us stepping outside of cultural norms and entering into exercise regimes and movement practices for possibly brand new reasons. I see movement practices as the perfect space to begin to establish really great communicative habits with our body. How do we begin to upgrade communication with ourselves through movement? So that next time you have that naggy shoulder sensation, through kinesics coaching, you're better able to decipher and decode the information coming from that shoulder and begin to respond appropriately, making decisions like, well, is my shoulder really something that needs to be fixed? Or if I just move differently, do I have a different experience in my shoulder? So while all that information is being gleaned, while that information is being accessed, we are adjacent to that, creating some really unique and creative movement strategies. Meaning, I'm now able to walk into the room in a number of different gait patterns. I'm now able to stand a number of different ways, move my shoulders a number of different ways, because I begin to understand that movement, posture, gait are not something to be done right or wrong, but simply just expressions of how I'm feeling. Expressions of my unique story, and expressions of, well, what am I finding valuable right now? Standing still or standing comfortably? And it's always my choice. That's the really great thing. This video is an invitation. I'm inviting you to check out, take a look at, and explore all of the tools and resources available to you here on this platform. I am super aware that the information you find here and that the platform from which I teach from is probably new to you. This work is for the game changers and the leaders, or at least those that would like to be. The independent type that is looking for a large return on investment for the time they put into any endeavor. This work is for the trailblazers that are challenging and creating rules as they go along and are looking for a movement practice and a skill set to support them in not only their journey to wellness, but their journey through life. I appreciate your curiosity, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of my work with you here online and at my space or yours. Take a look at jamescrater.com at all the services and offerings available to you there. There are some corporate services and some movement offerings, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about any of it. Additionally, if you are interested in co-creating a movement experience for your team, I'd love to talk with you about how resiliency and kinesics coaching can contribute and be a part of the culture of your community. Lastly, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I'm really looking forward to spending more time with you in the future. Thanks.